and welcome to Spoiler Piece Theater, the podcast that doesn't give a shit about spoilers. We just want to talk about the movies. My name is Dave Riedel. My pronouns are he, him. I write about movies, and I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association.
And my name is Megan Kearns. My pronouns are she, her. I write reviews for Edge Media Network. I'm a co-host of the Slashers podcast. I'm also a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and a member of Galaga, the Society of LGBTQ Entertainment Critics.
So we are operating as a duo this week. Evan is spelunking in Peru and couldn't make it. So presumably he'll be back next week. I don't know how deep those caves are, but yeah, that's the idea. So we're talking about movies as we always do. Got two new ones for you. Want to talk about the old one for you. Over on Patreon, we are talking about Michael Mann's 1983 film, The Keep. Did it keep our attention? Well, yes. But not for the reasons you hope a movie keeps your attention. If you want to hear us for roughly a half hour go like, I don't know what the fuck I just watched, then, you know, that's what you could. I spoiled that for you, too. We spoil everything on Spoiler Piece.
We sure do.
But Patreon, it's over there for $5 a month. You can get a bonus episode each week. You can vote in our monthly poll. There's going to be 2 polls this month because we didn't get to one in April because of circumstances. So we'll do 2 next month. And while I'm at it, we want to thank our sponsor piece patron, Heather Sachs. Thank you, Heather.
Thanks, Heather.
And on to this week's new releases. We are going to be talking about the very Irish horror film ? Frewaka. I think that's how it's pronounced because it's not an Irish word because the Irish title is something different. So I'm assuming it's pronounced Frewaka. And then we are going to be talking about On Swift Horses, which I really wish was called On Deadly Horses because then it could be maybe a bad Steven Seagal movie. But it's called On Swift Horses. So we're going to start with Frewaka. I'm not sure how this is pronounced, but I think it's written and directed by Ashlyn Clark. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it stars a lot of Irish people and one not Irish person. I can't remember where she's from. Oh, she's from Kyiv. So maybe a Ukrainian person. And I didn't look up the press notes, so I'm going to have to do the IMDb 1-sentence summary. I apologize to Megan. This is really what it says. Follow a student of nursing palliative care who is plagued by a trauma from her past that has a disorienting effect on her present, her relationship, her career, and her ability to function. That's not a sentence. I mean, if it was follows, it would be sort of a sentence.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, all of that in the 1-sentence IMDb summary is fairly accurate. What you get at the opening is a woman on her wedding night, I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like running from a boy who's got a goat.
Yep.
And she takes off her Irish friendship ring and throws it in the barn. And she's like, "Aah!" And, you know, don't know what happens to her. And then it flashes forward to, I think, her daughter hanging herself in her apartment before she does, singing very creepy faux nursery rhymes about the Lord. And then you see that she's in there for days, and you know, the rope breaks eventually, and the fire marshals come through the door, and they're like, "Ew, gross." And then we go to the present, and we have Shu, which is what everyone calls her because her name is it Siobhan? I don't remember.
Yep.
Yeah, it is Siobhan. And Siobhan is a nurse in training, I guess, and she gets a call. She's at her mother's apartment. I guess her mother has just died because they're at her mother's apartment. I'm assuming that's her girlfriend, right?
Yes, that is her fiance because they're about to get married. Yeah.
And they're going through Siobhan's mother's stuff, and Siobhan doesn't really want to have anything to do with it. And so when she gets this call to go to a remote section of Ireland where the patient only speaks Irish, but she actually speaks English too, because, I mean, come on. Yeah, she takes the job. And the fiance is like, come on, man, we got to sort through this shit. And she's like, nah, I don't want to. So Siobhan, takes a long ride out there. And when she's on the bus, she's like, hey, how do I get to house X? And the bus driver's like, I'm not sure. And he asks Old Man River. This is a theme, by the way, if you listen to Patreon. He asks Old Man River on the bus, how do you get to this house? And the guy's like, don't go to that house. And he's like, the man says he doesn't know. She's like, come on, this is a small town. He's 1,000,000 years old. He knows. And he's like, yeah, you could take 2 rights and a left and then walk up the path and you're there. But then you can tell that he's just like, don't go up there, lady.
Yeah, well, he doesn't know that she speaks Gaelic, so yeah.
Right. That's the whole reason that she's been sent out to this house, because the patient she will be taking care of, they say that she doesn't speak English, but she does. So anyway, Siobhan finds her way out there, and the old woman is like, get away! And she like pees under the door at her, which is something I've never seen. Somebody peeing at somebody in a movie.
Just seen cats do it, but not a human.
And so that happens, and she convinces the woman that she's not like evil or anything, and gets inside. And the old woman, we learn, is Peg. Was that her name? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
From the beginning, the woman who was getting married and like had, saw the boy with the goat and took off her ring and, all that stuff. And I'm still not sure what any of this all means, but we can parse that out later. So weird shit is happening at the house. There's this red door, as if someone has seen all of the, Lee Wannell movies with the red door. What is that? What are those?
Insidious.
That's right. I was going to say Insomnia, but that's not it.
Yeah, you were close.
Yeah. And there's maybe something down there, and sometimes Siobhan can get into the door and sometimes she can't, and sometimes she has to like pull really hard. And then one time she gets trapped down there, and like it looks like her mother is coming to get her, and you never see her mother's face, and she manages to get out. And eventually somebody who claims to be from Siobhan's nursing service comes to the house, and she's like, I've come to check up on you because you're technically a nurse in training and you're kind of a dum-dum from what we understand. So I got to come in. And this is after, by the way, Peg has been throwing shit out the window at the healthcare admin.
Mm-hmm.
And Siobhan's like, nah, you can come inside. And the healthcare aide steps inside, and she has this look on her face of like evil. And I'm like, oh no, this is what the old woman thought was Siobhan was evil. And that they're coming to get her, because the woman keeps saying like, they're coming to get me. They want me. Bah, 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 bah. And not really sure who they are, although we do learn boy with goat. And and it turns out the woman who hanged herself was her daughter. But we'll get to that. So anyway, this is now, I was not really creeped out by this movie. I think
okay.
I really wasn't. Usually this kind of stuff, like a good haunted house movie, will make me be like, ugh, but this didn't really do it for me. And I think that's because I've been ruined by caveat and oddity in Irish folk horror, See those movies, everybody. And so the healthcare admin is like fucking weird.
Yeah.
And Siobhan takes her up to Peg's room, and the door's locked, and the healthcare aide says, well, you got a key, right, dumbass? And she's like, yes, I have a key. So Siobhan goes to get the key, and the healthcare aide like presses her hands on the door and starts like smelling the door so to see. And I'm just like, wow, this is like, so Peg's not crazy. There's something weird going on. And Siobhan comes back, opens the door, and Peg is yelling, I don't give you permission to enter. I don't give you permission to enter. You may not enter. And Siobhan's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And she turns around and the healthcare admin is gone. So I guess it's not just you may enter my home. It's you have to ask for permission for each room. I don't know.
It seems that way.
It would have been interesting to see though what the healthcare admin would have done had she gotten into the room. If Siobhan had just been like, "Oh, come on in for Christ's sake." Meanwhile, Siobhan is starting to go like cuckoo herself. She's having visions. It turns out that you get the impression because her fiance gets a phone call that says, hey, Siobhan had asked for a leave of absence after her mother died. And she sent us the like timesheets, but she's not like on a job. So we're worried about her. And her fiance is like, what the fuck? And so Siobhan has either made this up in her head or she's been summoned. It's not quite clear which it is. Well, actually, she was summoned because the ending makes that pretty clear. And so it turns out, I guess, that the entire town is sort of, I don't know if evil's the right word because I don't know if the town is evil. I think that whatever the entity is that is doing all of this can impersonate anybody, right? Isn't that the impression you got?
Yes.
You didn't think that like Maeve was evil, did you?
No.
Yeah.
No. It's either some kind of hallucination, or yes, it's inhabiting the people. Yes.
Yeah, because toward the end, Peg is like, all right, you're my granddaughter. she figures it out. And well, she's like looking through Peg's notes or her diary or something. And she's like, did your mother have a club foot? And she's like, yeah, so what? And she's like, you're my granddaughter. And we sent you away so that the evil couldn't find you. And the evil's brought you back. So I'll sacrifice myself. And she goes behind the red door, not behind the green door, behind the red door. And she's like, bleh. And Siobhan's like, no, Peg. And then the door like opens and Peg crawls out like a bleeding mess. And she's like, they didn't want me. And I was like, now I have never heard that before. Because when Peg goes down the stairs at first, is that her husband who's down there waiting for her? It's not Boy with Goat, right?
No, it's her husband.
Yeah, it's her husband.
That we see in the beginning, yeah.
And I guess her husband didn't want her, or the ghost of her husband didn't want her, or her daughter didn't want her. I don't know. We're not really sure why they don't want her.
Right.
But,
or it could be the entities taking the form of her husband. Not sure.
I think that's more likely, right? I don't think her husband was probably evil, was he?
I don't know. Yeah.
He seemed like a little bit of a doofus, but I wouldn't say.
For the 30 seconds we see him on screen.
I think Boy with Goat, probably evil. Goats are always evil in movies like this.
Yes. They're often synonymous with like the devil. So yeah. And yes.
And so, and we don't really know whether Siobhan's mother was unwell mentally or whether she was like tormented by Boy with Goat and other entities, I will say the hanging scene at the beginning, because I didn't really realize what was going on until she stood up on the chair and I was like, oh shit. I was like, this is where we're going. And, I don't know, like I said, I don't know if her mother was unwell or if she was like tortured by entities or what. So anyway, Peg comes out, she's all bloodied and Siobhan's like, I'll go get help. And she's like, no, you can't go to the town. They're all in on it or something like that.
Yes.
And Siobhan's like knocking on doors and, she's like, somebody help me. And like everything's closed for like this festival, which has sort of been like, oh yeah, there's a festival. And, then the people who are in the festival wearing masks and shit, they come out from behind a corner and Boy with Goat is wearing a mask without goat. And he's banging a drum and they're following her to the house. And then Siobhan gets into the house and Peg has gotten herself upstairs and she's like, don't let anybody in. And then, Maeve is a townsperson that Siobhan has met who is totally normal. And then when she was in town banging on doors, she saw Maeve from a window and Maeve like closed the curtains like, I know what's going on and it's weird.
Mm-hmm.
So Maeve starts knocking on the door. She's like, I was worried about you in the town, so I went and got the doctor. He's like, Siobhan, we just want to check on you. And Peg's like, don't let him in. And then to distract Siobhan, she picks up a doorknob or half of a doorknob and she jams it in her eye and kills herself.
Yeah, she sure does.
Like real quick too. It's like pick up thing, jam an eye, fall over dead. And then Siobhan's like, cling, Peg, grandma. And doesn't open the door. They go away. How does she actually, I can't remember now. I just saw this too. What, does she let the healthcare admin in? I can't remember. Oh, she goes down to the basement herself.
Yeah.
That's it.
So as she's in the house and she starts like having some visions and she starts seeing things. And I think she has like a flashback or a vision of like when her mother was like abusing her as a child.
Yes.
And then she turns around and she sees like this white wedding-esque dress and she puts it on and then she goes into the basement. And then when she goes down and descends, but then she comes up and she's like in this like grassy knoll. And,
this rolling hillside.
Yeah. And then she keeps walking and walking and walking towards a strange man with goat antlers on a top of
hillside.
The hill. Yeah.
And then you see that like she looks up at Goat Man and then it cuts back to her and her eyes are bleeding.
Mm-hmm. And somebody puts like a crown on her head, like a weird crown.
And it's like, is this like the Irish version of the Toni Collette movie where her daughter's head gets knocked off a telephone pole?
Oh, Hereditary.
Hereditary, yeah. I mean, I felt like there were a lot of elements of other movies in this. The Goat, for example, has been in lots of. I mean, that's not unique to The Witch, for example.
No,
but that's what I think of most recently.
That's really tied to mythology, and this is very, from what Ashlyn Clark said in an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, this is very much tied to Irish mythology and like folklore that people have passed down for generations, and that stories she was told as a kid that she kind of took her own spin on. So I'm not surprised that it feels like so many other stories or elements from so many other stories.
Well, it feels like that movie we just watched a couple of months ago about like the evil tree that, they're digging out, and then, the rabbit baby.
Oh, Starvaker.
Starvaker. Yeah. Better than Starvaker, I would say.
Oh, but, a lot better than Starvaker. Yeah. Yeah.
But still not necessarily my cup of tea. I mean, maybe folk horror just doesn't do it for me. Maybe that's it.
But did you watch the mid-credit scene?
No. There's a mid-credit scene?
There's a mid-credit scene, yeah.
Well, do tell.
So the mid-credit scene is, and I almost missed it. I'm glad I was still watching the credits. So the mid-credit scene has, is it Mina, her fiance?
Yes, Mina.
Yeah, it has Mina at the red door begging to let her go. And she's like weeping and she's like, let her go, please. And Mina, we haven't mentioned this, is pregnant. Mm-hmm. And she's like, I'll give you anything. And then it cuts. So it's like, oh, is she going to get her back? But then she has to give up the baby?
I don't know. That's right. Because Mina shows her car is there at the end. And I think that's why actually that Siobhan goes into the basement, because she thinks they've taken Mina down there. Isn't that? Yeah,
I think so. It. Yeah.
Tricksters, these Irish folk horror people.
Trixie Hobbitses. Yep.
Yeah. So, lay it on me. What do you think?
So, I really liked this. I thought this was really eerie and ominous, and through a lot of it, I didn't know what the hell was going on fully. Like, even right from the start, I was like, I wasn't entirely, like, I actually thought the Siobhan's mother who kills herself, I thought that was Peg at first. And I'm like, damn, Peg looks really good for all these years later. And it's like, no, that was her daughter. And so, so I like that it kind of kept me on my toes, and that I wasn't like, there's this ambiguity running through it that kind of made me feel kind of off kilter in a way that Siobhan felt throughout a lot of the film. So I kind of like that it evokes the feelings that she's going through. I really like folk horror a lot, and so this really worked for me. I liked this. I liked the mother issues that it was exploring. I like the conversations between Mina, who's going through Shu's mother's house. And every time she's like, you need to look through this box, or, I'm going to send you these belongings, or I'm going to save these letters or photos. And she's like, don't, get rid of them, toss them. I don't want them. And she's like, but if she's your mother, you have a connection. She's like, no, I don't. And she's like, you don't know anything about our relationship. And I didn't like her and she didn't like me. And so I really liked that, how that was fraught. I like that there's this eerie, otherworldly, sinister presence, but also it's kind of tied to Catholicism, which is interesting. And I like the in that interview that I read with Ashlyn Clark, she talked about intergenerational trauma, and she said there's a lot of trauma in Ireland and that it gets passed down through generations, and she wanted to really infuse this with that, or that it kind of just naturally comes out. And she talked about how she has a lot of rage about that, about the treatment of women in Ireland and the world at large. And I think that is touched on. And also, like, there's it's so brief, but there's a mention about how Peg might have been sent to a Magdalene laundry, but then it's like never talked about again. And I'm like, that's fascinating. Was she? And like when she's talking about sending, we sent the baby away to save you. I'm like, wait, did that have something to do with it? Or is that just kind of an offhand comment to kind of make a commentary on Magdalene laundries? So yeah, this just really worked for me. I really liked this. I liked the performances. I liked the production design. I think that house is great, which apparently they just found like intact. That house, they didn't have to build anything except the red door.
You always got to build the red door.
Got to build the red door.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this really worked for me. I thought this was a good movie. I liked it.
Okay. Now I will say, I don't think it's a bad movie. I just think that, because I like a slow burn, but this is a slow burn.
It is. And it doesn't really like build to the kind of like cataclysmic finale that a lot of slow burns do. So
it's more like it's an inevitable conclusion.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Like a march towards death.
Yeah, exactly. Or a march toward being the bride of Goatman. I mean,
yep.
Which, I might think that death, you would prefer death instead of, marrying Goatman. I don't know. I did think there was like the whole thing with the healthcare admin was creepy.
Yeah.
That woman just, first of all, kind of looks like severe.
Very much so.
And then like the way it's shot, and this movie looks pretty good, I will say also.
Agree.
Very good use of space and lighting. Good camera movement. No real jump scares, which is kind of nice.
No, yeah.
Because it's hard to avoid jump scares, I think, in any horror movie. Even Caveat and Oddity have some kind of corny jump scares. Some good ones, but some corny ones. So yeah, I liked the main performance. I thought Siobhan was really good and towed the line between sort of unspoken misery and kookiness, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
And also, given what was going on, I sort of appreciated that the idea that she's not necessarily crazy, but these things are happening, but they don't make sense to other people,
Right.
Because why would they?
Right.
So, yeah, but I don't know. Just for some reason, it didn't, long, slow movies. This is not that long, actually. It's like an hour and 40 minutes. But movies that are kind of slow don't generally bother me. And I wouldn't say this bothered me, but it didn't really get my juices flowing. So,
yeah.
Oh, well.
Yeah, this is definitely like an ambiance type of movie. And I think, and maybe you have to be in the right mindset, or, I don't know, but I can see it not fully engaging you. But yeah, but no, it really worked for me. I was very much on its wavelength.
Okay. Well, do you have any final thoughts, or shall we move on to the next movie?
I do. This is a minor thing, but I really do like how it is a theme over and over, but it didn't feel like repetitive. But the point is hammered home that Siobhan is seen as this outsider.
Mm.
And even though she speaks the language, and when she's in the store, the local store, and the woman is like, the owner is like very rude and is talking about her in Gaelic, and she starts responding and she's like, I know what you're saying. And she's like, because she makes a comment about like, oh, only tourists buy like ringdings or whatever it is. And she's like, I'm from Dublin. And she's like, oh, same thing. And like, so there really is this kind of, I find it a fascinating theme in folk horror about like the collision of civilization or like the urban world with the natural world and kind of those two colliding together. I found that interesting, and I found it really crystallized in Shu's interactions with the townspeople who just assume she doesn't speak the language, even though she does fluently.
Right. You know what would have put this movie over the top for me, though?
What's that?
A nursing rabbit. So, just a reference to Starvaker, everybody.
That is fair. That is fair. And also, I like that it's a subtle queer horror film, but I like that it's a queer horror film too. It's another bonus for it.
It is subtle. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, is it though? Actually, is it really that subtle? I mean, the main character is queer, but anyway.
Well, I mean, it's like they're obviously together.
Yeah.
And but it's not just like, ooh, we're together. It's just like they're together, whatever.
Yeah, you know? Right. No, yeah, you got what I'm. Yeah. You're picking up what I'm putting down. Yeah.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, that was not Starvaker. I almost said Starvaker.
No.
That was Frewaka. I don't know what that means, by the way.
Oh, I know what that means. That is an Irish word, but this is the phonetic spelling of it.
Oh, so that we non-Irish speakers would get it.
Exactly. Yeah. So Frewaka means roots in Irish, but it has more of a connotation of like deep roots that are extremely hard to pull up. So it's so she said she named it Frewaka because it has that connotation, which is whereas like roots is just kind of like not a fluffy term, but in comparison, it doesn't have the same gravitas.
Okay.
Depth.
Got it. All right. So that was Roots Frewaka. Next movie is, of course, On Swift Horses.
Yes.
This is directed by Daniel Minahan, screenplays by Bryce Casts, based on the novel by Shannon Pufall. Stars the seemingly everywhere all of a sudden Jacob Elordi.
He is.
The seemingly everywhere Daisy Edgar Jones.
Mm-hmm, she is
the
too.
Wish He Weren't Everywhere Will Poulter.
Oh, I like Will Poulter.
Yeah, this is just kind of what he does, you know. Kind of plays sort of a dick. Sometimes he's more dickish, sometimes he's less dickish, but he's always kind of just, well, you know, we're in, like the government's going to give you fair compensation for your house. Like, why would I sign that petition? You know?
It's like he's not a dick on The Bear.
Oh, you know, I've never seen The Bear.
It's great. So. You should.
I was surprised to learn that he's an Englishman, like really English, because I don't think I've ever seen him play anything but Americans. I might have seen him play an English person once or twice, but he's been in so many things in the last 10 years that it's kind of hard to, you know, put your finger on all of them. Anyway, here is your 2-sentence IMDb summary. Muriel and her husband Lee are about to begin a bright new life, which is upended by the arrival of Lee's brother. No, that's not true. Muriel embarks on a secret life, gambling on racehorses and discovering a love she never thought possible. When I say that's not true, what I mean is she's already conflicted. I think that Julian, Lee's brother, just kind of brings everything into sharper focus, you know, because Lee's been asking her, oh, let's get married. You said you'd give me an answer by Christmas. It's Christmas Eve. They have just boned, by the way.
I'm sorry. Your description is amazing.
Well, that's what they're having sex.
No, I know.
And he's like, bleh! And then he's like, let's get married. I love you. And she's like, Let me go into the bathroom and pretend to take a shower while I smoke a cigarette and your shirtless brother is in the snow outside. And the moment I saw Jacob Elordi without a shirt on, I thought, nice physique. But then I thought, she's either going to have an affair with the brother or the brother's gay. And wouldn't you know it, brother's gay. And She apparently, we learn later, is bi. She becomes good acquaintances with her. Is she a neighbor? I don't really.
Kind of a neighbor.
Yeah. And then the woman she meets at the racetrack, I'm watching that going, well, come on. But she's just there, betting on the ponies so that she doesn't have to sell her house back in, I think it's Kansas, that Lee keeps telling her to sell so they can use the money to buy a home in San Diego. And she wins enough money on racehorses so that she can pretend she sold the house in Kansas.
Good for her.
I know. I was like, this is just the kind of movie where it's not about winning or losing on the horses. It's about winning so you can tell your husband you sold the house, but you didn't sell the house. It's like you didn't, like, how quickly do you think you sell a house in 1945? Oh no, 1953, I mean, it's not like it is now where you send wire transfers and you have a lawyer, you sign away power of attorney to a lawyer to sign everything for you. That's not how it works in 1953. I don't know how it did work, but that's not how you don't sell a farmhouse that quick. But anyway, they go out to San Diego. Julian, the brother, goes to Las Vegas and kind of sees that it's easy to count cards playing blackjack. And he goes to the heavies at the casino. He's like, hey, I'll be a guy who watches out for people betting on the blackjack and, giving secrets to the guys at the table. And they're like, what experience do you have? And he's like, none. And they're like, you're hired. And then he meets Henry, and they begin a passionate love affair. And Henry, the entire time, is trying to convince him, we got to start doing the whole thing. We got to do the blackjack scam. And Julian, who is sort of made to look like this kind of shyster or unreliable type of dude, is the one who's like, no, we can't do that. We have good jobs. What are you talking about? Like, they'll fucking beat the shit out of us.
We got a good thing going on. Why would we do that? Yeah.
Yeah. And so Henry eventually says, well, what's better than getting all this money for the work and buying a house in San Diego, buying a bigger house in Tijuana, because Henry's from Mexico. And then Henry steals all their money and goes to Mexico. Which
sure does.
I mean, I knew that was going to happen because it's just, you can see it coming a mile away. There are only so many hints that you can drop. I counted 4 where Henry is like, we got to get out of here and go to Tijuana. And so Julian is, beat up by his bosses because they think that, it was a scam, that he was working with Henry the whole time, which is not true. Henry was working a scam, although I think he did want Julian to come with him. He was like, he's just like, yeah, you're never going to go along with it. I'm out of here. Left the old note on the pillow. No lipstick on the mirror. Note on the pillow. I only mentioned lipstick on mirror because I was thinking of Roger Rabbit in that very moment. Julian gets a horse. He goes to San Diego. He finally, sees Muriel and Lee again. Meanwhile, Muriel has started an affair with, I guess, let's just say neighbor, with Sandra, who, always has olives and eggs for sale. Doesn't really have olives, but she procures them for Muriel. And, it all ends with Lee and Muriel breaking up because he just is like, you don't want to be here. This fucking blows. And she's like, I'm sorry. And he's like, sorry doesn't mean anything, or whatever he says. And she goes back to her farmhouse in Kansas because she never sold it, which I say good for her. Good for you, Muriel.
Absolutely.
And Julian comes to the house after he's been beaten up by his bosses and he hasn't been able to find Henry in Tijuana. And he's got, his horse. Well, no, he had left a horse with them, and the horse is the only thing left there. So he gets on the horse and starts using him as just, a horse to ride. Goes to this gay club where people leave notes on the walls. And Muriel had left a note that said, Julius, I'm sorry. And underneath that, Henry had found the note and he wrote, I'm sorry too, but you can find me here. And he taped a $1 chip from a particular casino. And the last thing you see is, by the way, it's the only note that's lit on the wall. I just want to point that out. Then the last thing you see is Julian riding down the highway on the horse, which you're not supposed to ride horses on highways, and not just because, it's not safe for the horse, or for the cars for that matter, but it's not good for their legs, man. They can't, that's asphalt. They don't like that shit. Anyway, what did you think?
So I liked the performances in this. I don't always like Daisy Edgar Jones. She's very hit or miss for me. I really liked her in the movie Fresh. I really liked her in this as Muriel. I think Muriel is really confused in many ways in that because she hasn't really come out in her sexuality. And I don't mean out because in 1953, it was extremely hard for people to come out, but I don't think she's fully out to herself.
Right.
And I think there's a really fascinating conversation between her and Sandra where they're talking and she's talking about her sexuality, because at first it might seem like, oh, she's a lesbian and she's always known that. But then she talks about how she loves Lee and how he made her feel really safe and seen. And so it's like, oh, yeah, she's bi or queer because she clearly does have, affections for him and love for him. And she's clearly very drawn to Julius too. And they have a really kind of interesting and beautiful connection. And they're both kind of navigating their queerness in this landscape. And I like their letters to each other and how they communicate. I like Jacob Elordi. I really like him on Euphoria and the few roles that I've seen him in. I mean, he has been everywhere in films since then, but the few that I've seen him in, I've liked him in as well. And I think he was actually really excellent in Sofia Coppola's Priscilla, playing Elvis Presley. But I like him here. And I think he has a real vulnerability to him here. Like, it's interesting when you were talking about how you think he's going to be like a con man and you think he's just going to be kind of, you didn't say shallow, but you kind of think like, oh, he's just going to be shallow and he's just going to be kind of like this user because he keeps telling Muriel like, oh, I'll come. And then like, oh, no, oops, I'm in Las Vegas now. And so it seems like he's just unreliable, but it's like, no, that's not what's happening. He's just someone who's constantly on the move or feels, and then he falls in love with Henry, and that's, sad and beautiful because Henry like fucks him over, but then apologizes at the gay bar, gay hotel note board. And then I also, it's interesting hearing you talk about Lee because I didn't think of him as a dick, but he really is a dick. But
he's a dick in that 1950s way.
Yeah, he's like very backwards in that he doesn't understand things, but he means well. So he's not like an outright dick, but he's still kind of a dick.
Yeah, and I think that he knows his brother's gay. I mean, I
do too, because he talks a lot about him being different.
Yeah.
Yes.
But then he makes a big thing saying like, I want you to move here and be near us. Yes. And I want to hear your voice in my house. So it's obviously one of the few men in 1953 who's like, so you're gay, whatever.
Right. He's like, who cares? Yeah. Which is refreshing to see. So I like that. And something I read that Daniel Minahan said was that it would have been very easy to make Lee like the villain, like kind of a stereotypical villain. And he's not, and he has more complexity. And I really appreciate that. I like Sasha Kaye. I loved her in The Summers, even though she has such a small role in that. And I think she's great here as Sandra. I really like the scene that she's hosting at the party with all the lesbians. It was like, I don't know, it seems like a really cool party, like with all her like arty friends. I'm like, I want to hang out at that party. I want to hang out at her house and eat olives. Yeah. And I think, is it Diego Calva who plays Henry? Yeah, I think he's good too. So I really love the performances and I like the look of this. I like the production design. I like the cinematography.
Looks good, yeah.
Yeah, it has this romantic feel to it, this kind of epic scope, in that it's, across the country and spanning time. And I like that we're kind of getting a period piece, sort of epic in a way, period piece about two queer people having different lives, but they intersect and they parallel each other. And I really liked that. I will say, though, that something that did not work for me, weirdly enough, considering Daniel Minahan is a gay filmmaker, is that the sex scenes just did not hit for me. They just didn't work. I don't know. There's something about this film where the love and the sex scenes felt on them like they worked on an intellectual level, but not on this like gut level for me. Like there almost seems to be this like distance, emotional distance.
Need a little more Paul Verhoeven.
I don't know about that, but
without
maybe.
the murder, maybe, I guess.
Yeah, maybe. But like, yeah, I can't quite put my finger on it. And it's been something I've been wrestling with since I saw this, that I don't know quite why it didn't fully work, but I really enjoyed this. And I think the performances and the cinematography are a big part of that.
Okay.
What did you think?
This didn't really work for me.
Oh, do tell.
Well, I don't think it's bad. I think that its main problem is that there's too much going on in each character's life and not enough time spent on it. And it's like the movie is just a bunch of like vignettes that are, they're chronological and they tell a story, but they're also telling stories that like, even though these characters are gay and or queer, kind of seen all this before, like the spouse who doesn't want to be married in this particular life. The husband who's a little bit of a dick, the wayward brother who's actually, like a good person. He's just like out of sorts. And I was also able to like really predict this. I didn't predict that Julia would come back, or Julian would come back with a horse. I did not predict that. But when he met, like the moment he met Henry, I'm like, well, this is a relationship on the, like, this is going to happen.
Oh,
and,
yeah, of
and
course.
then I was like, and Henry keeps talking about like doing this, so he's going to fuck him over. And when just the way that Muriel and Sandra interact from the moment they meet, it's like, well, there's something here that goes beyond just like, you're my neighbor and I'm buying olives,
oh yeah, I should say they have great chemistry. I really love the chemistry between the two of them.
And I don't really think I've ever seen Daisy Edgar Jones and gone like, yep, need to see more of her. I think her performance is really flat in this. And I think that's partially a function of her character's, the way she presents herself as she is in a life that she is not comfortable with, to sort of have like a kind of a flatness to it. But I also think that's there in the performance.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
And I don't like Will Poulter. I never have. Every time I see him, I'm just like, why do you want to have Jack Nicholson's eyebrows? Why? It's just, I know he can't help it, but every time I look at him, I can't help but think about other actors. And he most of the time plays an asshole. Now, you have said he does not on The Bear.
No, he's wonderful on The Bear.
And he didn't.
Lovely.
Yeah, and he didn't on We're the Millers, but that was like 10 or 12 years ago. Yeah.
Or a bajillion.
Yeah, he was a kid in that movie.
Yeah, he was.
So I've just never really warmed up to him. But it's mostly because he just plays horrible people.
Yeah, he usually does. He usually does.
So I like Sasha Calle. I thought Diego Calva was fine, but I think their performances, I think the only character that really has any like flavor to it or depth maybe is Sandra, but she's barely in it.
I know. We need more Sandra.
Yeah. I mean, you just kind of know what everybody is going through just based on how the story beats are playing out. And so every time something happens, it's like, well, obviously that's what's going to happen. I don't know if this novel that the movie is based on is this predictable, but I was just not surprised by anything. And I don't need to be surprised, but it's a problem when I know where the story's going 10 minutes before it gets there. And then when it gets there, I'm like, all right, well, maybe it'll take a left turn that I didn't see coming. Nope, went straight down the road. And this is not a case of me being like, oh, I'm guessing the ending. It's just like, I just found it kind of unsurprising, and I keep saying surprising, like it's not really what I mean. I guess if I'm thinking about where the story is going to go as I'm watching the movie, and then I'm waiting to see whether I'm right, that's kind of an indication that I'm living outside of this movie.
Right. You're not enmeshed. You're not invested.
Yeah. So I'm sure Daisy Edgar Jones is great somewhere. She's nice to look at. Actually, everybody in this movie is nice to look at. This is a movie full of attractive people.
Yeah.
I would say in all of our personal lives, we don't know that many good-looking people at the same time. There's just no way. But it does look good. I liked the music a lot, the music choices, the contemporary choices. I don't really remember the score too well. And so, I mean, and the pacing on it there's a lot of like breathing room in these scenes where they don't necessarily need it. So a lot of angsty looks and sighs and I know you're here for it.
Angsty looks. I am. I'm so here for it. Give that all to me.
I'm here for it.
Give me the melodrama.
I'm here for it when I'm invested in the characters.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair.
Now it's a completely different movie, but it has the secret gayness in it. The secret gayness.
Secret gayness.
Well, it's a period piece, but it's also Todd Haynes.
You're talking about Carol, which is like the pinnacle of that?
I'm talking about Far From Heaven.
Yeah.
But that one is kind of like made to feel like a Douglas Sirk melodrama, although it's not as melodramatic as a Douglas Sirk movie, because what can be? I mean, good Lord. But I kind of like the way the two forbidden romances in that played out, Julianne Moore and Dennis Haysbert, and then Dennis Quaid.
Your favorite.
My favorite, who's actually, I think, pretty good in that part, as her husband, who's, gay, but it's 1950 or whatever. So
right.
It's kind of a strange movie to compare this to, but the themes
I don't think it is, actually.
No, thank you.
Yeah,
it's also a very good-looking movie, too.
As Todd Haynes movies are.
Yes. Todd Haynes knows where to put a camera.
Mm-hmm.
And how to choose a production designer.
Yes.
So,
no, but I mean, there are not enough queer films, so it makes sense, especially that you would think of other queer films.
Sure.
You know, especially period films.
Well, I think the thing that is also that I am kind of waking up to when I see queer movies or black movies or whatever, not stereotypical white, straight movies, is that gay and black and queer and whomever, they can be just as not as good in their storytelling as white directors. But it's better to have them too, because, it's just, I like having different sorts of stories to see.
Absolutely.
This one just didn't happen to work for me.
Yeah. I one time, and I'm sure other people have said this too, but I one time heard someone read somewhere, someone said that this was a long time ago, we will get to a point where representation is equal when women filmmakers, people of color filmmakers, and queer filmmakers can make movies that are mediocre too, just like white men.
Yeah, and that's exactly the point I was getting at.
Right, exactly. And I also, because I've heard this criticism so many times, why do we need another queer film that is a period piece? Why can't we have a modern queer story? And listen, I'm here for those too. But I will say, again, as I often say, I love a queer period film because Not only do I love a period film, because I just do, but also because it shows we've always been here. And that is an important lesson to tell to everyone, both straight and queer people. So
Yeah.
it needs to be said. I will say the one thing that I think is different about this film, because I think you're right, it hits a lot of familiar beats. And I don't think this is a shocking film or surprising film in any way. So I agree with you on a lot of that, even though we have divergent feelings about the film. But the friendship between Julius and Muriel, that felt different, because so often in a queer film, especially a film like this where someone's queerness is kind of hidden or fully hidden, they're not around a lot of queer people. Like there might be their partner or their lover, but they don't have a lot of queer community. They don't have a lot of queer friends. And so that was kind of nice to see that they both connected and they both saw the other. They were drawn to each other, but they saw that the other was different in some way. And they kind of like knew without really fully exploring it explicitly. Because like Julia says something to her about really early on. He says, like, I didn't think you'd want a traditional life or something like that. And so it's like he sees that. It's like we see each other. And there's something about that I felt is really different. And I liked that. And I appreciated that in this film.
Yeah. Well, there it is. Yeah, I don't I don't have anything else to say. I think it just I think I was just disappointed in the narrative itself,
Yeah, that's totally fair. Yeah.
And in a way, the filmmaking, because that's a conscious choice to put that note under the lamp when you can't see any of the others. And I get it. It's like it's like, ooh, the thing but it's just like, this is fucking corny, And also the sign there on the desk in that scene, I think it says no rooms available. And I'm like, oh, and the clerk's not even at the desk. And I'm like, oh, come on. So it's like, so he has to go over to
I thought you were going to be not surprised, but annoyed about Henry and Muriel running into each other. Like, I thought that was going to be the thing that annoyed you. I didn't know you'd be so annoyed by the no.
It's the one gay club they both know, and they're both looking for the same person.
Yeah,
so,
that's true. No, it tracks. It tracks. I completely agree, but I don't know. I thought that, but I did not see the other things coming.
You know why I'm more forgiving a lot of times in movies of coincidence? Because one, coincidence happens in real life all the time.
They do. Yeah.
And especially when you I bump into people in every city I go to that I know and haven't seen in years. Every time.
I just saw two people bump into the parking lot at Disney World in Magic Kingdom, and they didn't know they were both going to be there at the same time. And that is the fourth largest parking lot in the world. So coincidences do indeed happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I just yeah.
I derailed things with Disney talk.
No, I was just thinking about how I met someone a couple weeks ago who went to the same high school I did, but like 10 years later.
Oh, that's so weird.
Is only in their early 40s. Had no idea that I. So, any spray.
It's a weird world.
It's a weird world.
Wait, so what's the second reason you're okay with coincidences in movies?
Well, the coincidence factor in real life.
Yeah.
And then, the other one about me bumping into people everywhere I go.
Oh, I gotcha.
Because I remember when I moved to California, that was truly bizarre. Like, I saw people that I knew all the time in Sacramento.
Really?
But then, but then when I would go down to like Los Angeles, I'd always bump into somebody I went to college with, but hadn't seen since college. And then I would bump into people that like I knew had moved to San Francisco vaguely. And then I went to like, I remember I went to a rock show in San Francisco, like right after I'd moved to Sacramento. And I, bumped into a girl I went to middle school with in Wisconsin. So, just shit happens,
Yeah.
So
that it does.
Yep. So anyway, that's a long way of saying I forgive the coincidences of Henry and Muriel meeting in the bar at the end of On Swift Horses. These are languorous horses, by the way. These are not swift. But
I was like, well, the racetrack horses are swift.
But you never see them. You see them like a little bit.
Thank God. I'm glad about that. That was my one reservation about seeing this movie was I didn't want to see racehorses because I'm so anti-racehorses.
Yeah, I'm not a big pro racehorse person.
Yeah, no. So I'm glad that it's more kind of symbolic rather than very literal. Yeah. I mean, I guess it's literal because she's literally winning money, but you know.
Yeah. And you know what? I do like the choice of having her always win on the horses, even though they never say, oh, she's a winner. Well, one, she's doing it in secret. But two, because that would just be sort of an unnecessary plot thread. It's like, not only are we queer and hiding that and this, that, and the other, we don't want to have this life married to Lee, but now we're losing money on the ponies, so I'm glad it didn't go that direction.
No.
Yeah. Do you have any closing thoughts on, I was just going to say on pale horses. What is my problem? I got death on the mind. I got Steven Seagal on the mind. I don't know.
Oh, Steven Seagal, that jerk. No. I think we've covered it.
All right, then let's wrap up this episode. I am going to say you got to pass on Frewaka.
Oh, I would recommend it.
Okay. And I would say your mileage may vary on Swift Horses.
Yeah, I would recommend that too because I liked it. But yes, I think your mileage may vary is very fair.
And regarding our Patreon episode where we talk about the Michael Mann film, The Keep. He made a film called Heat 12 years later, but this movie's called The Keep. And I would say if you really want to watch a movie and when it's over, go like, what the fuck did I just watch? then this is the movie for you.
That was something.
Yeah, I'll tell you. Okay, so that was Spoiler Piece Theater. We want to thank our editor, Otto Klammer. Otto, thank you for making us sound great every week.
Thanks so much, Otto.
You can find Spoiler Piece Theater anywhere you get podcasts. Our website is spoilerpiece.com. On social media, we're Spoiler Piece Theater on Facebook, and we're at Spoiler Piece on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and at spoilerpiece.bluesky.whatever on Blue Sky. If you would like to get in, what's that?
Threads.
I forgot Threads. If you want to get in touch with us and tell us why On Swift Horses is aptly named, you can do that by emailing us at spoilerpiece@gmail.com. Or if you would prefer to leave us a voicemail, you can do that too by giving us a call
at 862-21-PEACE.
Leave your voicemail. Tell us what you thought of this week's stuff. Tell us what you thought of like 6 weeks ago. Whatever you want to do. If you like the show, please rate and review us by going to ratethispodcast.com/spoilerpiece, or you can rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. That boosts us because algorithms are a thing. And if you really, really like the show, please consider joining our Patreon. I've talked about it a lot, so I'm not going to repeat myself, but I will say our Patreon is great. We have so much fun. It's loose. We're talking about movies that are a little bit older, and we can be like, what were they doing in 1970? Or whatever. So, and that's that. My name is Dave Riedel. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, and on all of the social medias, I'm either Dave Sees Movies or David Riedel. You figure it out.
And my name is Megan Kearns. I write for Edge Media Network. I'm a co-host of the Slashers podcast, member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, and a member of Gallica. You can follow me on Blue Sky and Twitter at OpinionSWorld or on Instagram and Letterboxd at The Opinion S.
Thanks, everyone. See you next week.
Bye.